Hi, I am Stacy Scapel. I am a school social worker here at Laverne. I am just going to answer a few of these questions. The first question is, what are some strategies that you have found most effective when working with students with EBD? I think the strategies we find most effective are those that help with organization, with task completion, lots of rewards, trying to encourage the behavior that we want to have demonstrated. Lots of follow-up with several different professionals here at school I think is also helpful to get a lot of people on the same page. Also, I think it's helpful when we involve things at home and parents and get them on board as well. But things like getting things set up in a planner, organizing lockers, keeping things manageable in the classroom, helping them to prioritize the assignments that they need to complete, kind of helping them to know what expectations they have. At times we also modify assignments or create different expectations based upon each individual need as well, which seems to be pretty helpful. The next question is, what other advantages aside from convenience do you see with the increase in mental health counseling in the school setting? I think one of the biggest advantages we have when we have therapy occur here at our school is that we can collaborate more with the therapist to know what's going on here at school and get help and strategies and help each other develop different things that will be helpful for the child. So it's easier to collaborate, I think, is the biggest advantage. And then, many of the symptoms of mental illness and EBD overlap. How can you discern from the various symptoms to ensure students are obtaining the appropriate services based upon their individual needs? I think we really just look at what is going on in the both home environment as well as school environment. That will tell us a lot. We also kind of identify what would be helpful for the students here at school. And if that isn't meeting the needs, then we also just kind of look at where is the gap and where can we address that gap with additional services. But really using the DSM and making sure that we've hit the appropriate diagnostic criteria, I think, is really important as well.
I am Renee Guy, the school psychologist, and I will go through a few questions also. What information from school personnel do you find the most helpful and least helpful when conducting an assessment for a student suspected of having emotional behavioral disorder? I think the most helpful information would be the data that one obtains when looking at specific behaviors. It's very helpful for staff involved to keep track of that data. What are the observable behaviors or target behaviors that we're dealing with? And keeping track on a consistent basis so we have a good baseline and knowing where to go from there. I have seen various roles within the evaluation process for school psychologists, even within the same district. What are your thoughts on how much or how little, as well as what assessment results besides intellectual testing, psychologists should be evaluating as opposed to other participating team members? I think the thing to keep in mind here is to look at the whole child comprehensively. Yes, it's helpful to take a look at an intellectual measure and the processing deficits and things like that, but also look at the whole child. Getting information and putting those pieces together help figure out what educational interventions need to be made, what mental health interventions need to be made. So putting that all together, the school psychologist can, from there, and with all that information, be able to kind of look forward into what avenues that may be best for that child, whether it's educationally, socially, emotionally, that type of stuff. Really specifically hooking up the right interventions for that child or educational instruction or strategies, matching that up with the whole child. What part of the evaluation process do you find most difficult to do and why? Again, I'm going back to the data. We need to all be doing a good job with taking data, and when we don't have that data, it's harder to know what target behaviors are, what we're looking for, what's playing into what. So making sure that that data is available and getting that information is really, really helpful. On average, how long does an EBD evaluation take for you to do from start to finish, and in which parts do you find to take the most time? As you know, we have 30 school days to do an assessment, but when doing an EBD evaluation, it is a requirement to have a functional behavioral assessment, or the FBA, as part of that evaluation, and that can be a lengthy part of the process because you're taking a lot of information, which includes data, but also observations, and pulling together checklists and different kinds of things to be able to take a look at the function of that behavior. So that is a very integral part of an EBD evaluation. What things do you do to ensure collaboration between yourself, the special education teacher, and the general education teacher when working with EBD students? Again, that communication is very important. We need to know, strengths, weaknesses, what's been tried, what needs to be tried in the future, or different interventions that need to be happening. Just communication. What we often do is just even written communication is very helpful amongst staff to be able to collect the data that you need and work together. Next question is, what medications are commonly prescribed for students with EBD, and what are their side effects that can be observed in the classroom? Oftentimes, we see in the school setting, students are taking medication for attention deficit disorder, and often are using stimulant medications. That's probably the most common, and being able to monitor that is important because knowing when students start or stop those medications, knowing when there's increases in those medications are helpful for the school personnel to be able to determine, overall effectiveness. Sometimes those side effects that we see in the classroom could be, restless behaviors, or it could be, more withdrawn behaviors. Those are the two things that we see as side effects. And do you have any tips for motivating middle school and high school students who have little or no intrinsic or extrinsic motivation? The main thing is to, even if they have very little of motivation, you start with extrinsic motivation, or those outwardly, rewards and systems, and getting those in place, being consistent, but maybe they need more frequent rewards, and making sure you put those in place, and having that system or a plan, because we hope that the extrinsic motivation becomes more intrinsic down the line. So if we really put those things in place, it's very important.
All right, thank you.